Alright. Well, I think this should be working now. Apparently I can't activate my Fraps hotkey in here for whatever reason, but when I was creating the beginnings of my walkthrough, it occurred to me that I was using a whole bunch of jargon that probably wouldn't mean anything to anybody who hasn't either played Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd Edition or hasn't played Baldur's Gate 2, Neverwinter Nights, or really any Dungeons & Dragons of any kind. So I thought I would go ahead and make a quick, well, this isn't PowerPoint, this is actually OpenOffice's Impress Suite, which is basically a free PowerPoint clone, so check that out if you want to not pay hundreds of dollars for your, like Microsoft Word, Office, all that stuff is included in OpenOffice. But this is a Young Gamer's Illustrated Primer to Baldur's Gate 2. The title for this, I'm basically, I don't know, maybe a parody. I've created a parody of Neil Stephenson's Diamond Age, also known as A Young Lady's Illustrated Primer. It's an excellent book. If you like science fiction, definitely check it out. So, the objectives for this primer were pretty straightforward. I wanted to give an explanation of, all the basic systems in Baldur's Gate 2. I wanted to give an analysis of the choices I made when making my characters and filling out my party. I did use a Fixpack, a tweak pack, and I also used a widescreen patch, but most people wouldn't care about that. But I wanted to talk, I say a discussion here. I hope it can be a simple discussion of why I chose to use certain fixes and tweaks in this playthrough. I also wanted to give a simple explanation of my objectives with this run, since I'll be skipping a couple of things, but I don't think it'll be too bad. And at the very end, I'm going to talk about plans for future Let's Plays. So, basic systems in Baldur's Gate 2 revolve primarily around combat, and they focus on these things. The first is your Thaco, which stands for 2-hit armor class 0. Your armor class is how difficult your character is to hit, commonly referred to as AC. A simple example of the way that Thaco and armor class interact is right here. If you have a Thaco of 9 and you're trying to hit an armor class of 0, you will roll a 20-sided die, and a result of 9 or higher will represent a hit. So you roll a 9, you hit. Now, if they have an armor class of -2 and your Thaco is 9, then you would need to roll an 11 or higher. The easy way to do this is basically to take the opposite of this and then add it to whatever their armor class needs to be, or excuse me, to your Thaco to determine what you need to roll. For example, down here, if you have a Thaco of 9 and they have an armor class of 10, which is the base armor class for most humans, you take the opposite, so -10 plus or -19, so you would need to roll, or oh my goodness, -9, so you would need to roll a 1 to hit. Pretty straightforward. I don't believe you can hit on a 1. I believe you'll always miss, so 2 or higher will guarantee you a hit. Speed factor. This is a stat that's attached to weapons and to spells, although it's largely irrelevant. The only thing it determines is combat order, and it's rarely relevant. It is occasionally good, especially if you've got extremely fast weapons like bows, because it lets you figure out if you're going to interrupt a spellcaster, but like I said, it'll almost never actually be relevant. A combat round, it is a limit on the number of actions that occur in a given amount of time. So it's usually represented by about 6 seconds, and this is mostly relevant in attacks per round. It's pretty self-explanatory, but the only exception is when you have half of an attack per round. So in this example, you have 3/2 attacks per round. That means approximately 1.5 attacks per round. During the first round of combat, you will only make 1 attack, and in the second round, you will make 2. I believe that's how it goes. It could be 2 and then 1, but again, it doesn't matter too much. The same with 5 out of 2. You'll make 2 attacks the first round, 3 attacks the second round. This particularly makes fighters pretty good, because every time you go up a grade in your abilities, like if you have 5 points in longsword versus 4, it gives you an extra half of an attack per round, and it can really make the difference sometimes. Having, say, 5 attacks per round or 5 out of 2 attacks per round can be a pretty significant difference. So especially with one of the fixes that was applied, which we'll be discussing later on in the Fixpack, this is a pretty interesting quality. And one other thing that's worth mentioning are high-level abilities, commonly called HLAs. I'll probably switch between these two at random. These things are freaking amazing. They give you some of the best abilities in the game, and I didn't discuss them too much in this primer because it won't be for a very long time, well into probably the 4th or 5th chapter of this game before we get access to them, maybe even the expansion, although I should have enough XP by then. But they are really, really good, so don't discount those. Now, when I was making my characters, the first thing I decided on right off the bat was to make a fully customized party for a couple reasons. It speeds up the playthrough considerably because of several things. The NPCs that you can normally recruit have really bad stats most of the time, or it's more precise to say that they have normal stats for a Dungeons & Dragons game. You're not going to see a ridiculous stat spread like you are with the party that you're going to make. And they also, a lot of the kits are bad. There is an Inquisitor, so that's pretty good. But there's also, for example, there's a fighter Cleric, but the fighter has 13 strength. So these two things combine to make it just abysmal. There's the fighter Druid, again, like 13 strength, so she's terrible. The NPCs themselves, while they do have some plot interaction, they don't really do a whole lot. Most of the time they'll either complain about how you're being evil, or they'll commend you for being good, or if they're evil they'll do the opposite. But it doesn't really matter. You get almost no XP for doing their plot quests, and a lot of them are kind of silly, frankly. Oh, one other advantage is any of the characters used in this playthrough would make an excellent ball spawn candidate. I chose to use the Berserker Thief because I tend to do a lot of things with him solo because it's just less micromanagement, and usually even though you would think having 5 characters attacking would be more damaging than having 1, you can take advantage of certain systems to make that not so prevalent. And this will also make things a bit easier because, as I said, these guys have terrible stats, terrible kits, so this will be a good party, a very strong party, and it'll blow right through the game. As for the characters themselves, the Berserker Thief, you really want a thief in your party. You don't need one. You can complete the entire game even as a solo sorcerer, for example, but being able to disarm traps gets you plenty of free XP. Opening locks also gets free XP. It makes accessing stuff easier. And like, thieves just have a lot of conveniences. Oh, also they have pickpocketing, and well, we're going to go on a crime spree as one of the first things we're going to do. But in addition to that, in combat, they have massive backstabs, which lets you pretty much instantly kill any caster. There are a few exceptions to this. One Lich in particular is kind of a pain in the butt, but for the most part you can really, really decimate people with this. He's really easy to run around without having to do a lot of like pre-buffing and making sure that buffing, I guess I should define that. Buffing is just where you improve your character by casting spells to make him stronger. Well, let's just say that you don't need to do a whole lot of that with the Thief. Usually one casting of Improved Haste, one casting of Chaotic Commands, and you're good to go. The weapon of choice, you have to be able to backstab with it. I put Longsword and Scimitar, Katana maybe, but really Longswords and Scimitars are the way to go. I went with Longswords this run just because in the early game you have access to a lot of really good Longswords. At some point we'll probably have enough pips in our abilities that we can have Grand Mastery and Scimitars and just switch between these two as convenience permits. In the offhand, we're either going to use Kundane, Belm, or the Scarlet Ninja Toe just for the extra attack per round. That's all three of those do the same thing, and that extra attack always applies to the main hand weapon. So that will allow us to do massive damage with high-powered weapons, and he'll be the focus of the party probably. Most of my combat will be centered around making this guy be as effective as possible. The next character we made was Marfa, the Fighter Cleric. Cleric, you usually want to have at least one Cleric. I guess you could do it with the Druid too, but you need somebody, and Druids can't handle negative plane protection. I don't think they get chaotic commands either. This stops you from being hit with most of the nasty stuff that gets you killed. Hold person, confusion, stun, feeble mind, all those annoying things. This stops you from being level drained. These two, slow poison actually cures poison outright in this game. I don't know what that's about. Cure disease just removes disease. It does exactly what it says. Two very useful things, especially in the beginning. Not so relevant in the late game, but hey. Heal and remove paralysis. Heal is super clutch. You need that occasionally, especially against fire giants. Remove paralysis. This like if your party is about to get wrecked, this can just save the day. We also needed a flail user. For some reason, clerics can use flails in this game, even though they probably shouldn't be able to. They get the hardest hitting weapon in the game in the form of the flail. So that's pretty nice. We're going to pair it with this weapon, which maxes out their strength, which it's just, again, it removes pre-buffing because clerics can do all kinds of things to get to max strength. And yeah, the basic gist of this character is they're a great brawler. They're great front lines for dealing with the fodder crap that you deal with for most of the game. And they're good for buffs and healing when you need them to do that. Now this character is arguably the most broken combination of kits in the game. If you could make this a conjurer, if you're using some patch where there are no multi-classing, dual-classing restrictions, you may as well make it a conjurer and get the extra spell slot, but it's totally unnecessary. We're gonna level it up to level 9. It's gonna have a completely obnoxious Thaco and armor class by the end of the game. Several spells, including Ghost Armor and Spirit Armor, combined with the Robe of Vecna, will drop your armor class into the floor. Your Thaco is just going to be amazing by default. Axes, there are so many good axes, and I never really get to use them, so I decided to start doing that in my test runs, and I'm definitely glad I did. As far as spellcasting is concerned, Skull Trap and Delayed Blast Fireball, there are limitations on Thief Traps, which I totally glossed over, but Thieves also get amazing traps. I'm sure we'll get into that at some point. There are limitations on those, though. You can only have 7 down at one time. There are no such limitations on the magical traps, so you could drop, say, 20,000 Skull Traps in one spot if you wanted, and nothing would happen. Same with Delayed Blast Fireball. So these two things let them help with the trap deployment for fights where you need to do heavy preparations. Mostly dragons. Sometimes some other rooms can be easier if you do things this way. They get to take advantage of Wish Resting. Basically, there's a 9th level spell, Wish, and one of the options you can get when you cast the spell is to basically give your party full life and all of their spells back if they had any spells, which allows you to do a kind of an infinite recursive loop of like spamming spells, cast Wish, rest, cast Wish, rest, do it forever. That's particularly abusive with time stop, because once time is stopped, Thaco stops mattering, and you pretty much always hit them, unless they're immune to time stop, which only 2 things are in the whole game. This will be a weak class for a little bit in the beginning, and even really not until probably chapter 4 or 5 will this character really start to shine. But as soon as they get high level abilities, and especially once we can actually make them a mage, this character is going to be a monster. Bards. So we have a blade. Bards just make life easier. The high level ability Bard Song really makes the difference. It improves your hit bonus by 4, gives you a -4 to your armor class, which you can, I believe the maximum armor class you can get is -20, and this will help you get there very easily with minimal buffing. They can cast wizard spells, specifically 6th level wizard spells, improved haste, and their high level abilities also allow them to take thief traps, and they get use any item, which is also semi-convenient. Early on, blades specifically are actually pretty good in combat. They end up immune to haste, but they can basically give themselves a better haste in the form of offensive spin. And it matters a little bit with improved haste, but not so much once you have offensive spin. They start to taper off as combatants in the late game, but right around that time you're going to get the high level Bard Song, and once you do that, you basically just want to have them singing that for the whole battle anyways, so it really doesn't matter too much. You can also use their defensive spin while they're using Bard Song to get their armor class really low so that stuff doesn't just walk over and kill them as they're, singing in the middle of battle. Let's see. The next is the Inquisitor, Ximinez. The special abilities of the Inquisitor make this class really overpowering. Dispel Magic and True Sight, both excellent. Dispel Magic is cast at ridiculous caster levels, like up to 80 or 90 sometimes, so that's just absurd. And there really isn't any downside to taking this class. The caster abilities you get as a paladin are basically crap. Turning Undead is crap. The Lay on Hands is actually kind of nice, but it's totally unnecessary. I would trade Dispel Magic and True Sight for Lay on Hands any day. And you get an amazing weapon in the Carcimer. It's got great stats. It's super easy. All you need are two-handed proficiencies, and you can basically go to town. These guys are really tough frontline fighters, especially in the early game, but they're persistently good through the whole game. And critical, they can really make this game just easier. This Dispel especially makes caster fights a joke. True Sight helps with caster fights and with rogues. Amazing class. And the last one is just a character I picked to round out the team. This is a lot of up-close fighters, so I figured I should probably include an archer, or I was also considering like a sorcerer or a conjurer. But it rounds out the team. It gives it, some kind of range support in case you're stuck like on the other side of a bridge or something. I know there's one part where if you don't have a ranged attack, you literally can't progress because of a kind of a weird bug. But you could substitute an assassin, would be a pretty good substitute. A sorcerer, a monk wouldn't be bad. And definitely make the party, not even slow down. Bows, they have an amazing speed factor, which I said was mostly irrelevant, but that makes this character really good at interrupting spellcasters. And it also means that their attacks happen earlier in the round, which is occasionally relevant for determining whether or not one of your characters is going to get hit that one extra time to die. There are tons of good bows in the game, and the pacing of the bow drops is really good. You start out at the first thing we're going to do is get a really good bow that's going to last us for quite a while. And all of these things combine to make this a better Wizard Slayer than the Wizard Slayer kit. Like I said, you can just interrupt casters all day with this. And their damage bonus per level for, I think it's every 3 levels, is just totally crazy by the end of the game. So that's it for the characters. Next up, we've got this Fixpack here. The basic problem is that Baldur's Gate 2 is a really buggy game. There are a lot of problems it has, and this really does address a lot of like minor problems you'll have with, you know, a script black holing or somebody not showing up where they're supposed to be, or, you know, any kind of other problems. And it fixes a few of those that are just sort of nuisances, and it fixes several of them that will literally stop you from progressing the game entirely and just leave you stranded. Also included are convenience fixes, and I highly recommend it for the sake of simplicity. If you're going to play Baldur's Gate 2, you probably want to use, at the very least, the Fixpack, and since an overwhelming majority of monitors are widescreen these days, you definitely want to check out the widescreen mod as well. I don't believe you'll be able to play this game otherwise. And this is just a list of features that I enabled. Improved spell animations, just different spell animations. Holy symbol fixes is more of a cosmetic thing. Trade meet hero quest just changes the order that you do the quests in the trade meet so that it actually makes some kind of logical sense. The bard song fixes, half the bard songs don't do anything, and this just fixes that. Wizard Slayer miscast is irrelevant because I'm not playing a Wizard Slayer, but I figured I'd enable it anyways. Alignment fixes, this changes the alignment of certain creatures, like I think bears were listed as evil or something, but they were changed to true neutral. It's a lot of stuff like that, so that's something. And this free action prevents stun. Largely irrelevant. I don't think I'm ever going to cast free action. Most of them are self-explanatory. You can check out the README on their site for more details. The tweak pack, some of these border on cheating. Especially, I think, yeah, like multiple strongholds and allowing Cromwell to make Watchers keep items are two of the really closer to cheating things. I'll guess I'll discuss that in turn, but they do border on cheating, and none of this stuff is really necessary. So if you're really hardcore about, oh, I don't want to be cheating with this, then, you know, just don't install the tweak pack at all. But most of these things are just for the sake of convenience or cosmetics. Remove helmets. Helmets are just terrible looking in this game. These three, it just changes their character model to be a caster. I believe this is also, no, this is a thief because she's normally a caster. And then this makes her skin bluish, as her portrait suggests, instead of like a solid black that's kind of awkward. This changes weapon animations to be more consistent. If you're using a spear, you probably aren't going to be doing overhead swings a lot. If you're using, say, a flail, you're probably not going to be stabbing with it a lot, so that's what that changes. Icewind Dale casting changes spell animations a little bit more. Icon improvements, I think it just gives you higher resolution icons on your character portrait. Forced dialogue pause, it just pauses the game whenever you're talking to someone so that like stuff doesn't kill you while you're talking because you can't get out of dialogue when you're being hit. Pretty ridiculous. Improved multiplayer kickout dialogue. Since I'm using a custom party, this is critical because this allows me to kick certain members of my party out so that I can recruit other NPCs for like singular quests. I don't even know if I'm going to do any of that, but that's what that's about. It's pretty useful. This puts some bags of holding in the game. I don't know if I'll actually take advantage of it, but it is pretty convenient to do this, and it adds some potion bags too, which I probably will take advantage of. Stores sell larger stacks. This is mostly irrelevant. It's just like extra potions and extra ammo, but barely worth mentioning. Shapeshifter rebalancing. Basically, the Shapeshifter kit is bugged to hell. None of the stuff it says it gives you, it actually gives you. It does. Actually, shapeshifting does basically nothing. This fixes that and makes it almost playable, but still pretty bad. Multiple strongholds. This is borderline cheating. Basically, normally, you can only get a stronghold for your class. So I'm starting out as a Berserker, so I could only get the Fighter stronghold. Or if I was a thief, I could only get the thief stronghold. Or, you know, whatever your class is, that's the only stronghold you could get. I'm doing this especially to show off a lot of them. I will skip a few, and I'll explain that later. But basically this is borderline cheating, because you can get massive amounts of experience. It's like 50,000-60,000 per stronghold as quest experience at the end. It's pretty obnoxious. But let's see. Reveal wilderness before chapter 6. There are a couple of areas that you can't go to until after chapter 6, but there's really no reason why. So this just reveals it. I don't know if it reveals something else, but we probably won't even go there anyways. Bonus merchants. If you pre-ordered the game, or if you bought the special edition of the game, which is what I did, you get a special merchant for each. This basically just puts those merchants in the game, because it's silly that they did that. This is actually one of the first instances of a video game incentivizing pre-purchase and special edition purchase with superior in-game, like game-breaking effects when you do it. These days that's all downloadable content, and it's kind of silly, but this is one of the first. This is like the precursor to DLC right here. This last one on this page, allow Cromwell to make Watcher's Keep items. So you can get a couple of, like, because there's a join section of the game that you can go to in either Shadows of Amn or Throne of Bhaal. You can get some items that can be upgraded in Watcher's Keep, but they can only be upgraded if you're playing Throne of Bhaal. This allows Cromwell, who is the master smith or whatever in Shadows of Amn, to upgrade these items as long as you have the requisite components. Some of them still can't be upgraded until Throne of Bhaal, but this is borderline cheating, because some of these upgrades are kind of ridiculous. But it's not too bad, and I don't really care. You still can't get any of the really good stuff from Throne of Bhaal until Throne of Bhaal, so no biggie there. Weapon styles for all. This lets you take two-weapon fighting, two-handed weapon fighting, single weapon fighting, and what's the other one? Oh, sword and shield style. As any class, basically, any class that can use like shields, you can use sword and shield style or whatever. This is mostly cosmetic. It doesn't really affect this party. I removed the experience cap. I don't know how relevant that's going to be. Getting more than 8 million XP in a single run can be a bit difficult. True Grand Mastery. This is actually a bug fix. In Baldur's Gate 2, Grand Mastery only adds +1 to damage. But in Baldur's Gate 1, Icewind Dale, and in Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, it gives, I think it's +2 to damage, +1 to hit, and an extra half attack per round. So I think this is just a bug, but it's included in the tweak pack. I don't know why. But I went ahead and installed that. It makes Grand Mastery worth getting, actually. I unnerfed the Thaco table, Sorcerer, Mage, Druid, Cleric, Bard spell progression tables. This stuff, for some reason, you would stop gaining Thaco after you hit level 20, regardless of if your table would have theoretically progressed until 0. But yeah, this just fixes that. Also, the spell tables for all of these classes were nerfed in Baldur's Gate 2, and nobody knows why, so this unnerfs them. It removes delay. This one's remove delay for magical traps. Makes them a little bit more useful in combat, but really the delay was only about 2/3 of a second or so, so it's pretty marginal. Easy spell learning. Basically, I just don't feel like having to quick save before I read a scroll, and this will make one particularly abusive thing just a lot less painful. Bottomless bags of holding. This is an inventory micromanagement solution. I don't feel like having to carry around multiple bags of holding, multiple scroll cases, multiple gem bags. That's a waste of time. It's a waste of your time. I strongly recommend, if you're going to install anything out of this tweak pack, this is definitely what you want. Remove fatigue from restoration because it was pointless. I guess this is also borderline cheating, but then again, the fatigue does, as far as I can tell, it does absolutely nothing. I think it's supposed to like make your Thaco worse, but I don't know that it does. Unlimited stacks of arrows, potions, gems, stuff like that. Again, this is inventory micromanagement that is unnecessary, and it was intrinsic of that whole era of gaming where, you know, things were kind of poorly programmed and there was no thought put into interface design, although that hasn't really gone away, unfortunately. Invisible Cloak of Mirroring, Spell Trap, and Physical Mirror. The spell animations for this are completely ridiculous, guys. It's called the Wiffle Ball amongst people who play this game. It's crazy. I'm not playing around with that. This one, the thing about this is you can kill a certain famous dark elf and take his loot. Normally somebody comes and takes all of it away from you, but you can bypass that by just dropping it on the ground anyways, so I figured, what the hell, I may as well do that. And that's the end of the Gibberlings 3. Now we're just into simple objectives for this run. Obviously I want to beat Baldur's Gate 2 and Throne of Ball. Pretty straightforward. I want to complete most of the major quests, and I want to do it in an order that actually makes sense. You can probably do anything pretty much right out of the gates, but it would be really hard, and there's no reason to do that. So I'm hoping to demonstrate a path of least resistance. There are probably a lot, depends on your party, but hopefully it'll be a path of least resistance. I want to do minimal pre-buffing because it takes a lot of time and the payoff is usually kind of marginal. Most of the pre-buffing I will do will be improved haste and chaotic commands on the Berserker Thief, and he's just going to go massacre stuff by himself. That's usually how I do things for fodder troops. I'm going to get probably all of the best gear, or at the very least I'm going to get most of it. I'll probably skip some crap, and some of my decisions in this run will be based more on optimization than morality. This game doesn't really take good and evil very seriously, so neither do I. As for what I hope to do in the future, I'd like to do some more Let's Plays. Minecraft comes to mind. The Deus Ex series also comes to mind. Mass Effect. I've got a troller run that I really want to do on Mass Effect, but one Let's Play at a time. Hey, viewers. Multiplayer, who knows? Maybe I'll coax my friends into playing with me. But and then I'd like to do fighting games, but I need a video capture card, and I don't feel like paying for one of those right now. So this has been a Young Gamer's Illustrated Primer to Baldur's Gate 2. Some of this will be covered redundantly in the first couple of episodes, as the character creation covers every class kit, it covers every race, and it covers, yeah, a whole lot of the stuff I covered in here. So thanks a lot. I'll see you guys later. One last thing I forgot, guys. I meant to include my rig setup just so people have a baseline for what I'm doing this with. I've got an Intel Core 2 quad. It's clocked at 2.4 gigahertz. It has 4 CPUs, obviously. I have about 6 gig of RAM, DDR2 800 megahertz. I've got a single NVIDIA GTX 460. I'm using Fraps for the recording. Ooh, I'm also using Virtual Dub for the video editing. That's not included for some reason. I have a Blue Snowball microphone, recently acquired. I'm using a keyboard that I think is pushing the 8-year mark. This thing is ancient and it still works. I love it. I have a semi-new mouse, 1.5 years old. The other one, I think the laser inside of it died, and I don't know how to fix that. So, oh well. And it is April 11th, 2012, as of when I recorded this primer. So, information may have changed with the release of, say, Baldur's Gate 2 Enhanced Edition. But, oh well.